Get in there. That's 3 points in the bag. Another great day in the office at St. James's Park, or I should say a great second half. Probably not the most invigorating of first halves. But at the end of the day, 3 points is all we asked for this weekend. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all you. Thanks for joining along with us, Ches, Turpy. Glad to see you. Please, before we get into everything, some quick housekeeping, and then we'll get into all the details. Make sure you hit a thumbs up on this video. It helps us continue to grow as a channel, get to more like-minded Toon fans like yourself. Also, subscribe if you aren't already. Hit the notification bell so you know when we're going live after games, all kinds of things. Stay tuned for all of Lee's content that should be coming as the day goes on. And more importantly, today, as well as a handful of other videos in the upcoming weeks, have been sponsored by Ballybet. And just like Newcastle getting 2 goals tonight, let's try something new this season and go with Ballybet. It's a nice bet builder. You've got live markets, a smooth app for Prem nights, new players. You get to bet £10, and if you do that, you get 20 free pounds worth of bets. The link is in the bio. There's also the QR code if if I learn how to point. But anyways, hit that if you're 18 and older. Obviously, bet responsibly. Be gamble aware. T's and C's apply as always. But let's get into the game. It's been a good one. Thanks for hopping in with us. And we've got Nigel patiently waiting. I'll bring him in. What did you think of the game today, Nigel?
I thought we were okay. I thought we were all right. I don't think it was anything spectacular. I think we did enough to get the job done. Probably had another couple of gears to go through, but it's nice to see after Champions League win, big win of the week, to come back bouncing. Because I think in the last Champions League campaign we probably struggled with that, with the quick turnaround of game. So it's good, and the table looks a lot healthier now. You know, going to international break, come back, got a few winnable fixtures for Man City, I think, at the start of November. So yeah, I think we're in a really good place. We're in a good place after a slightly rocky start.
Real quickly, want to hit upon what Colin said there. I agree. Watched Isak yesterday. He did nothing. I keep hearing about this Isak guy. Who is he? I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem to miss him or anything, because Nick Woltemade, I don't know if it was all over your UK broadcast, but here in the States, Nick Woltemade now is the first Newcastle player to score in his first 3 games at St. James's since Alan Shearer and Rio Ferdinand.
Yeah, it's not a bad.
Pretty illustrious company there.
Yeah, it's good company. He's had a good start. He's obviously a very different type of player to you know who. But yeah, he's had a very good start, and he just offers so much up front for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be perfection for sure, but I think the important thing is there's still gears to come with Woltemade. I think if we rewind a couple weeks when we had the Wolves post match, I was talking a lot with Joe about how I was very concerned if we would have the patience that might be necessary. And I think all I can say is if you like him now, I think we're only going to grow to like him more. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to become the next best striker or anything like that. But I just think there are levels that he still has yet to go as he clicks. Because in the first half, I was a little disappointed in his performance personally.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, with Wissa being injured still, would he have maybe had the game time that he's had? So he's had that amount of, he's had a little bit of pressure on him. Because I think when Wissa is available and fit, I think he certainly comes into contention for this. Certainly with the games so close, back to back and stuff. So he's had a lot of pressure. He's done very well. No complaints. Looks good value for money so far. It is crazy how we've got rid of one striker who was okay, and we've got another striker who is also okay as well. So it is a very good replacement.
Yeah, so let's get into it and kind of just real quickly talk about the highlights of the game. I think early on in the game, a little bit of maybe some you could say controversial ref decisions. I'm not sure if you would agree. But the first one I want to talk about, obviously, it didn't end up panning out, probably mattering that much. But Nico Williams, I think he easily could have had two yellows because he had a couple where he probably handballed. Even it was out of the box. They weren't penalties, but they looked like deliberate handballs, and that tackle should have been probably the second yellow.
It's just inconsistency from referees again, isn't it? It's just inconsistency. It's just like, where did you line? Same with VAR in the second half with the penalties and the pulling over. I think it was Dan Burn, etc. It's just right across the board. It's just not consistent. And Howard Webb, sorry, was brought in to make referee there. He has it. There's controversy every week, and that's why they have a show on Monday morning about on Sky Sports News in England. It's just consistency. That's all we want as football fans: is consistency. One thing's a foul, it's not, and same with the handball. And the handball rule is an absolute joke, I think.
I think it's one of those where, as much as I think us as a fan at times we want intent to be factored in, I think intent makes it so much harder because intent is subjective. And I don't know if some people would disagree with me, but I'd almost like it to be, no pun intended, black and white, because at least there'd be nothing to argue with. The main, I think, arguments come from is like, what's natural? That's too ambiguous of a term because one could argue when you're trying to lunge, putting your arm here is a natural position as you're trying to do that. Others might say that's not natural. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's from your top of your shoulder to your bottom of your fingertips, and I think maybe he's looking at. I don't know. Um, the one that gives me nightmares now still is Tino Livramento a few years ago in PSG. Still quite haven't got over that yet. So yeah, the handball rule needs looking at that without a shadow of a doubt. What is intent? What's natural? What's not natural? Uh, it's almost like you can't
Yeah,
defend anymore. You've got to defend in a certain way. You've got to run in a certain way. You're a defender.
yeah, absolutely. But I think the main talking point of the first half was just kind of lethargy. I mean, I felt like we were ponderous on the ball. I felt like Woltemade was playing too deep. Yes, I like his link up play, but it felt like Milinkovic was kind of nullifying him and making his first touch not as good as we saw versus Union midweek. But what did what did you think of it? Did you think it was just we're still not clicking, or do you think that style of play doesn't work? Like, do we not have the pieces for that?
I think it was a slow start, just because Forest support they're in poor form. There's no doubt about that. They're in trouble, and you couldn't rule out Ange getting sacked next week for sure after the run they've been on. But yeah, we just didn't seem to clear. We just slow starting. We had a few chances and stuff. It was a very similar team from midweek as well, so it wasn't like we massively changed team. Just slow starting, I think, and I think we just did enough to win the game. It wasn't anything spectacular. It was just second half. Second half was much better. Second half was much better. We come out second half and a moment of magic from Bruno. How many times he's done that in the past? When they talk about club legends, he's definitely one, isn't he?
Uh, One other thing I just realized probably should have started there. The starting lineup again. We see Dan Burn and actually no Lewis Hall even on the bench. Are you concerned at all about that? Because I missed that he wasn't even on the bench. So I was actually saying in the group chat, like, we need to get Hall on. But if he's not even on the bench, I know he also wasn't on the bench for Arsenal, I don't believe, if my memory serves. So I do think he said in the press conference he's trying to take him easy, but it does seem a little weird, or am I maybe just over panicking?
Yeah, I'm concerned about Lewis Hall's fitness. It's a bit of worry now because he had the injury at the back end of last season. So I thought he'd have had a pre-season, take the ground running, and certainly be back by the start of this season. I saw bits in Newcastle Fantasy group chat and stuff about Dan Burn left back. To be fair, I don't think Eddie Howe's got much choice other than putting Dan Burn left back. Livramento's injured. It's not like he can shift Trippier across there or even Livramento playing there. He hasn't got many left back options unless I'm missing anyone. I don't think I am. Maybe Emil Kraft could have played there. Not sure, but Dan Burn, he's okay there. He's not a left back. We had a problem a few years ago. He's not a left back. But ultimately, there is an issue with Lewis Hall's fitness. Did he come on in a week? I think maybe 20 minutes. But there is an issue there with Lewis Hall's fitness, and it is worried because he was one of our best players last season.
Listen, in the chat, I knew I was messing up as I said it. Not Rio Ferdinand, Les Ferdinand, Sir Les. My apologies. Listen, you get the bright lights on of YouTube. It gets to you sometimes. You say dumb stuff. Like my first, I don't know if you guys watched. I put out a match prediction video for week 1, and I was building my starting 11, and I built a starting 12 because you just you're not paying attention, and counting is hard. So yeah, sorry about that, Turpy. Thanks for calling it out. But yeah. Sir Les and Alan Shearer, the only ones to score in their first 3 home. Another good comment from Matt. Good win for us today. Also, apparently the Lasses completed the comeback. I turned that off right at the end, so they must have brought a equalizer, making it 2-2 draw. So that's good for the Lasses. And also, no injuries. I think we got through this one hopefully unscathed. I can't think of anyone who really looked shaken up throughout the game, so that's good news. But I think probably the brightest spot, if not Nick Woltemade, the past couple games would be one Malik Chow. I'm curious if you would have any disagreements. Has anyone else stood out? I mean, Sven Botman's obviously in there, but I think Malik Chow has. Maybe it's just because he's the shiny new toy that makes us a little bit more biased, but I have been so pleased to see what he's offered us, and it makes me feel so much more at ease as we slowly need to move on from Fabian Shearer. I think we still have many great games with Fabi left, but it's good to know that we've got someone waiting.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. There is life after Fabian Shaw. Shaw's been with us now a fair whack of time, sort of 7-8 years, certainly well into the Mike Ashley era. So yeah, he's come in and done really well. Obviously the first 3, 4, 5, maybe even half dozen games he wasn't playing, and it's just sort of the way Eddie Howe does things with new signings. We've seen it so many times in the past with Bruno and Botman, etc. He sort of just eases players in, keeps them on the bench, and then bang. I don't see Shaw getting back in now, really. Certainly not for the big A star games. He might get a League Cup game and maybe the odd Champions League game, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it now, especially with Botman in there as well. I just don't. I think that is the pairing probably for the next 8 to 10 years with their ages as well.
Yeah, I'm happy what I've seen from Botman. I was starting to get worried that he maybe wasn't going to bounce back from it, because me personally, I even felt the first game and a half of his, I didn't think he was at his best. I know some people were already kind of ranting and raving that they really liked what they saw from him. I personally was not as, I didn't think he played poor, but I didn't think he was back to his best right out the gate. I think he took a little bit of a runway to get there, where like Chow, when he came in, I don't think we skipped a beat, really. I think he just came right in. I think it kind of reminded me, I think we talked about this on whatever game that was. I'm blanking which one it was, but it kind of reminded me of like the Bruno debut when he did that little flick, and it was just like, it meant nothing, but we hadn't seen that kind of confidence in class in so long that it just was really exciting. So, and Chow did a similar thing. He got the ball and just kind of did a little fancy dribble, and it was like, okay, I'm not used to seeing my center backs doing that.
Yeah, totally agree. He's coming in. He looks at home. He looks comfortable. We now have ball playing centre halves, which is very good. It's almost like a very like for like replacement to Shaw. You can see he likes coming out with the ball, etc. And it's a great centre half pairing, which will hopefully bring many clean sheets as well. I could even see when Hall's fully fit and firing that even Dan Burn, one of Eddie Howe's most trusted centre backs, might come out then and not get in with that pairing.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if they've announced who got the man of the match yet.
I think it was Bruno with Sky.
Okay,
Anyway.
that's what I think I saw. And originally, before the Woltemade penalty, I was scrambling to change the thumbnail and put Mr. Bruno on there. Obviously, he is in there, as you can see. But I'll go to you and we can talk about Bruno. I'll ask you kind of 2-1 for your last questions.
Sure.
Who would be your man in the match? And since it was given to Bruno, what did you think of Bruno's performance? I'll preface this with I was very displeased with Bruno's first half. I think Bruno was trying too hard, and I think he was involved in a lot of those turnovers. Now, don't get me wrong. We want to see ambitious passes, but they just weren't working. And sometimes I feel like instead of reacting to them not working, he just keeps trying to force it. And sometimes I don't think that's the right decision. Again, maybe people would disagree with me because I think he went on to have a very good second half. I mean, his tackle in the build up to that goal was beautifully timed. We'll get to Connor in a few moments, but Connor and I were talking about it in the group chat. Perfectly timed there. So, what did you think of Bruno? And would Bruno be your man of the match, or would it be someone else for you?
I'm Bruno biased just because I absolutely love Bruno. I think he's fantastic. I don't think he has many.
I
He
have
never
my
has really many bad. He never really has many bad games. He's always like a 7, 8 out of 10. I think he was brilliant today. The map, Sky Sports show. Not sure if you got it over there, but the map he showed was he covered every inch of grass. He was brilliant. It was a typical captain performance. I do feel like since Howe's made Bruno captain, I feel like his game's even gone to another level. Passing ability, shooting ability. He's just something special. He's something special, and we need to keep hold of him for as long as possible because if we're going to win trophies, he's got to be at the center of it. I believe.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think the mark of a good captain, and that is even if I'm being harsh, there's no denying he had a better second half. He didn't let one half dictate him. I think there's so many players that you can see their body language maybe drop, and then it affect them. They just kind of give up after 45 minutes, and I think that's one of the things that I love about this team as a whole is many players sometimes might take a disappointing half and they respond. They don't let it dictate what happens in the next half. Anything else you wanted to talk about? I know we didn't really get to the second half and the goal scores. That we'll get a little bit more in depth with that with Connor. But anything that you'd really like to talk about before I let you go, my friend?
No, just very happy with the performance. Very professional. It wasn't outstanding, just enough to get the job done, and very satisfying. There's nothing worse than going into the international break on the back of a loss or draw. So
Exactly. I think it keeps the momentum going after the Union game. It wasn't the most prettiest of victories, but it was a victory nonetheless. Now we can enjoy a week and a half of no football and not be
oh
stressed.
no, oh no.
And honestly, for me, now being on this side, the week and a halves are sometimes nice because it gives you just a second to breathe in between content and things like that. But I get quickly bored of it without it, and I look forward to bantering my coworkers tomorrow. Who I don't think Sheshko scored yesterday, did he? In that Man U win?
You might have. I don't know. I'm
Oh,
not sure.
Connor's nodding his head yes. So never mind. I
Yeah.
was going to say that Voltemade keeps getting more goals than Sheshko because I have a coworker who's a Man U fan, so I keep teasing him about that. But anyways, well, it's been a pleasure having you as always, Nigel. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
popping in, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Yep. Cheers. Let's go back to you, chat, and see what you've got to say and what you've been thinking. Mandy saying, what a good win. Agreed, Mandy. It was a very good win indeed. Put it in the chat, guys. Who do you think is your man of the match? Please give us a thumbs up also while we're at it. Just going through some of the housekeeping and getting everything prepped. But let us know who your man of the match was as we continue through. We will prep to bring in my good buddy Connor, and we'll get his thoughts. But yeah, let us know your thoughts, and we'll come back to the chat here shortly. So, Connor, my friend, how are we doing?
How are we doing, Josh? Yes, not too bad. My mic was muted there, so I had to get it unmuted just before.
Yeah, no worries. I was trying to get it for you.
Yeah, good win. Obviously, as you spoke about there with Nigel, clearly a better second half than the first half. The first half was a bit trepidatious. I think part of that comes from you're not sure what you're expecting for Forest. They have, despite their form, and it's weird coming into a game at home, off the back of a 4-0 win away in Europe against a Forest team who are struggling right now. There was still some nervousness about this game because I think for a number of reasons. I think one being that we know over the last few seasons, Forest have been a tough opponent for us. Very seldom have we comfortably beat them. Including the penalty shootout in the cup last year, for example, to begin the journey there, to winning it. So you're going to be in for a tough game, and I thought at times it showed. But it was an evenly matched first half. Some of the decisions that you spoke about, I mean, for me, some of the officiating today was so poor. I don't like talking about officials, but I think if you talk about them when you win, nobody can accuse you of having sour grapes. Because I just think, like you mentioned in the first half, how can you deliberately handball it twice, in my opinion, and have a foul as well and stay on the park is beyond me, because each of those incidents alone are all bookings, so that was unfortunate. And then even getting into the second half, and I had said it, I was amazed that VR had checked the tangle between Morato and Byrne and said that minimal contact was the excuse given, that's why they weren't going to send the referee to the screen or call for a penalty, because it was minimal contact. Now, as I said to you in the chat, how on earth, they just redefine their own words basically, because how can wrestling someone and grappling them to the ground, how can that be minimal? There's nothing minimal about it. And I could accept maybe if you say, right, okay, he gets a warning for that one, but the ref should then be saying, look, any more it will be a penalty.
Yeah.
The next time we got a corner kick, the same thing happened.
Yeah.
Again, grappled, and the ref did nothing. So it was frustrating from that point of view. But I thought that the players reacted really well to it, and they kept their heads, they kept going, and rightfully got the 3 points.
Yeah, I think my big thing that I felt on that incident you're saying is, I don't know what your the UK stream was saying, but the big thing they were saying on the stream here in the States was, oh well, he was so far away from the ball, it probably didn't impact. Like, it wasn't like Dan Burn was going to get to the ball, and I never understand this. Like, I understand the argument, but there's also an element of like, so if you're not involved in the actual play, you can just do whatever you want. Is that what you're saying? Like, I could just go and 2-foot someone, but it was nowhere near the ball, and that wouldn't be a red card? No, like, it would still be a red card. If anything, it would make it even worse than if you were, trying to make a legitimate tackle and maybe you got your timing wrong. So I just don't buy some of the logic sometimes. To me, as I was kind of talking about with the handball with Nigel, I think sometimes it just needs to be more black and white, because yes, maybe in the beginning people will complain about that felt so soft. But if you just consistently do that, eventually we'll understand what is the new rules, and we'll be at peace with it. It won't seem like a soft penalty as long as they're calling it consistently. Because I think that's the main thing with officiating is, listen, we understand it's not going to be 100% perfect. It is human element, and humans are not perfect. But at the same time, there's just some things that I just don't understand, because I watch a lot of Bundesliga as well, and I just don't feel like I ever feel so robbed by the officials while I'm watching Bundesliga games.
Yeah, it's the trouble is nobody really knows how the rules are working, or because they seem to make it up on the hoof as they go along. And part of the issue is also in the way it gets described by pundits in the media sometimes is inaccurate. I go back to last week, for example, against Arsenal, and a lot of pundits were saying, well, it takes a slight deflection off of Gabriel's shin, so therefore that negates the handball. Effectively, it doesn't matter if it's an unnatural position or not. It's deflected off, and therefore the penalty doesn't get given. And they were saying that even Jamie Redknapp was saying that because his hand was so high, he was lucky, but took the deflection. That's a total misunderstanding of the rule. It's a misconception that if it deflects off a body part, that negates a handball. Always, it doesn't. There's still because if that was the case, right, then as a defender, you could just deflect it up off your leg and catch the ball then, because it's deflected off you, so it doesn't matter. Which obviously, like you said about the 2-footer, it's absurd. Obviously, that would be a penalty. So, I think that's part of the issue with all these decisions. Is there's always seems to be this loophole or way around it, or go, well, but he wasn't near the ball where he. But these things cannot be getting stated in absolute terms until, as you say, you clearly define it and go, no, this is it, simple as that. Any handball is going to be a foul, or if you're pulling and tugging in the box, it's a foul. Then, as you say, people might complain initially, but they'll get used to it. And I think that's the frustration from a fan's point of view, especially when you're watching a game and you see these incidents, and then the commentators, because they can hear VAR, we can't, and they'll sit there and they'll go, "Oh, well, VAR are checking this or they're checking that," and you're going, "What?"
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I bet you if that was in Paris, that would be a Paris handball for sure. But and speaking of betting, again, let's not forget about our sponsors over the next couple weeks. Thank you so much to Ballybet, a new sports book in the UK with some proper US pedigree. It's a clean app. You've got a bet builder, so you can create your own combinations of what you want to do. Live in-play bets, quick settles, handy for match day. Use welcome offer in the links below or at the QR code for 18 above. And again, the offer is bet £10. You'll get 20 free pounds in bets. That is for your first bet. Hit the links to check it out. 18 plus, T's and C's applies. Play safely and be gamble aware. So let's get back into it. As we've alluded to, the second half much better. I think the midfield was a big part of that turnaround. I think the play was flowing. Tonali, I think, would be the easy person to point out, but I think sometimes when you put in Steady's performances, it's sometimes almost you take them for granted. But I think someone who stepped up, who's not been, is I think Joe Linton's performance in particular in the second half was a lot better. Doing some of those 10, 20-yard runs just to get us some more ground and then making a smart pass. Nothing crazy, no worldy of a passes, but I think kind of linking together everything. What did you think of Joe Linton's performance? I think this was a good vintage Joe performance.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he played really well. I thought he done. It always sounds like you're knocking him when you say it, and you're not. I thought he done the basics very, very well today. I thought those, as you say, those simple things, just gaining you 20 yards, 30 yards up the park, getting a simple pass off, not, doing anything overly fancy, just doing all those parts right and just stringing things together. I think it really caused problems for Forest. I think it gave us a great outlay in the midfield when we were getting in those areas, and it creates pockets of space as well. Like with Tonali or for Bruno when they're trying to make runs forward, or your wingers, with Alanga and Gordon, it just gives that bit more freedom there. And I thought he done really, really well to string it all together. I think the whole unit, that midfield three, I think is brilliant. I think Joe Linton, Tonali, and Bruno, that is a top midfield. That's a midfield that I think most teams in the Premier League would quite enjoy having. They would all walk into those teams, and I think it's a testament to them. I mean, Bruno's goal is world class. That is an absolute peach against a goalkeeper who was in inspired form this afternoon. And Matt Sells, he produced some brilliant saves, and so to ping that out was great. The way he won the ball back as well, because obviously they checked that, and you thought, surely not. But he wins it back cleanly, and then Morgan Gibbs White sort of runs into him, but that's by the by. He then gets his self turned and gets himself into a position where he's got space to take the shot on. which is brilliant to see because he does have those efforts from time to time from outside the box, and they don't always pay off. So it's nice to see that today. And then you've got Tonali not too long after that. What an effort he had, by the way. That was almost sensational. And it was definitely a shot because I think at first you'd be forgiven for thinking, was he trying to square that across? And he's just maybe, but then when you see it back,
Oh, he was.
his
Right from the get go. I think he meant that. I mean, not to go on a tangent or side tangent, but going back to this week, did Woltemade mean it, or did it just hit his foot?
I mean, listen, I said on Thursday, I thought he meant it because of his movement.
Yeah.
Because there was you could see that slight flick from his foot
Yeah.
there. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it was a case of he's seen that the ball's coming through him and he's thought, I'll just throw my foot at it, and if I make contact, it's in. Although it might have went in anyway, so, but I think he meant it. But yeah, I mean, it was a great effort, tipped over by Sells, and we were really, really pressing well. Getting in Forest's faces.
Mhm.
There were some moments at 1-0 that we could have been punished in. We had Chris Wood ultimately was just offside, but again, we left a gap, which you've got to be careful with because you won't always get that offside to bail you out or a poor finish. And we think you said in the chat that maybe it was time to change the fullbacks. I agree with you. I'd like to have seen Lewis Hall in the squad, but unfortunately not. But other than that, and the quick feet from Hudson-Odoi when he got through, and then I did think with that one I slightly panicked because when he hit it, I thought, why is Pope not just? He should have just caught that, but he ended up sort of flapping it. But we dealt with it well, and then we got our just rewards because we pressed it. That pass into Tiao, what a save for the keeper! I mean, I think Tiao
I know.
should
Chow
score.
just
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then Barnes gets in as well just seconds later, and you're like, oh. And I had put the chat, I was like, oh no, this is going to be another late equaliser because
Well,
we can't
and
get.
was the Voltamada bar also
Oh,
before
crossbar,
that?
yeah. Oh, that was unbelievable. Again, it's brilliant play from us. It's a great
Yeah.
ball in the box. We caused all sorts of problems, I think, all afternoon. We crosses into the box. Forest were struggling to deal with it. And that is one of those ones, though, that he's so unlucky because 9 times out of 10, when that comes off the underside of the crossbar, it goes in. It's just he's happened to catch it in the one part of the underside that sent it back out again. But you could tell that we were really fighting for that second goal. And it showed when we got the penalty because, again, Bruno, is brilliant play from him to get himself in there and put the pressure on Anderson. And he basically got his body in front of Elliot Anderson and forced the foul. Now, don't get me wrong, I suppose if you're Forest, you're probably thinking, well, he's going away for goal anyway, so just let him win the ball and go out wide. But at a moment of panic and a clear foul, and then what a penalty for Woltemade, straight into the top
Oh,
bins.
I thought he skied it for a second. I thought it. I don't know if the camera angle was the same, but I thought he shanked it for a second, and that was top bins. I mean, real quick shout out to chat. We were talking about Big Joe. He says Big Joe or Big Toe. Also, back to your comment about the midfield, they're saying goated midfield, and I would agree. I think you've got a perfect combination of them. It's just so balanced. They're, obviously not every one of them are probably the best at what they do, but the symbiotic nature they have playing together makes them. And I think the beauty of them as a midfield trio is sometimes one of them's not at it, but they can kind of almost make up for each other's deficiencies, even if one of them's not fully at the races that day. But when they all are clicking, we're almost untouchable. AS down saying Voltamessi, all around better footballer than Isak. Listen, if he keeps doing this for a few more weeks, I think we can start seriously having that conversation. I'm not going to say that I disagree with you, my friend. Obviously, I think we need to not get too ahead of ourselves like other fan bases might. But I love what we see. I mean, I've loved him from the second. I think we've talked about this many times on the show. I also, in the Bundesliga, follow Stuttgart. So I was more than happy to see us pick him up. I had seen him up close and personal for quite a while. But as we prep to get ready for Jacob, who would be your man of the match today, Connor? And is there anything else in the second half that we really haven't touched upon that you really want to touch upon?
Well, the man of the match for me, I think Bruno obviously got it on Sky Sports, and I think he, merited it. But I actually think, for me, my man of the match personally would have been Woltemade, because I think again it's another brilliant all-round centre forwards performance, topped off with the goal from the spot, which you can't deny he is scoring every week. I would like to see hopefully Johan Visa come in soon, but he's had another setback, unfortunately. But just it would take a bit pressure off him, because again, another good striker there in Visa. But I just thought again he's had another brilliant performance, and Bruno, you expect it for Bruno. You know he's always going to give you a 7 or 8 out of 10 minimum every week. So I'd give it to Voltmada there. I think as well with the second half. I think credit where it's due. I think what we saw today was not necessarily an up there vintage outstanding performance, but a very solid display off the back of an away trip in Europe as well, which is never easy. We've seen that 2 years ago. We had struggles after European games, and I think the lads deserve a lot of credit for what they put into that game today, especially when it wasn't that greatly a changed side. So all round, I'm very, very happy with what I've seen.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think there's a lot of people you can put in a shout. We talked a little bit about Joe Linton. I think you could put in an argument for him. I think you could put in an argument for Chow. But one final thing, we talked about the fullbacks a little bit, but are you a little worried on the right side with Tino being shaken up? Because really, right now, our only option then would be Kraft, other than Trippier. And I will admit, I'm probably a little bit tougher on Trippier than maybe I should, but I just don't think he's got the legs for the Premier League anymore. I think he looks much more viable still in the Champions League games, because those games sometimes can be a little bit more tactical and things like that than the Premier League. But there's some times where I just feel like he's pinching, and I'm like, you don't have the legs to get back if this doesn't work. And I just sometimes it makes me nervous, but maybe I'm being a bit hard on.
No, I get that, and listen. To be fair to Emil Kraft, who is at the moment the only other option, he's proven himself over the last couple of seasons to be a fairly reliable hand when he has been called upon to come in there. He's not got the quality of a Trippier certainly, or a Tino, but he is quite good at just doing his basics and not. He doesn't venture too far very often, but he's a fairly stable pair of hands if you needed to call him in. But I agree. I think that's why we maybe should have looked at bringing in another fullback during the transfer window. I think that's probably an area that we neglected a little bit. By the way, I think as a fan base we did, because I think we were concentrated so much on the centre backs to make sure we've got another option for Shearer, and then the forward position with the Isak situation. So it was understandable why it happened. But for me, hopefully we can get guys back in soon. Lewis Hall, obviously, on the other side as well, because I love Big Dan Burn, but he's not a fullback. For me, Dan Burn is a centre half all day long. One of the best centre halves, I think, in the Premier League on his day. When he's at fullback, he still does a good job, but he can get caught for pace, and that's the concern. So I agree with that. I think we just need to be mindful of it. But hopefully, a couple of weeks in international break, that should hopefully allow time for maybe Lewis Hall, if Eddie Howe's not thinking he's up to speed, to get there and to look at the options in and around it. Obviously, probably won't be for Tino because it does look like a bad one. But yeah, it's a slight area of worry, but I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it as always, Connor. Our little, I always think it's the accent portion of the show. I mean, I know to me my voice just sounds normal, but I'm sure to all the local Geordies, you got a Yank and a Scotsman. So hopefully they enjoyed our international takes on it. So thank you, my friend. We will catch up soon. I'm going to go to your chats, and then we will bring in Jacob shortly. So let's get into your comments again. My man in the match was Bruno from my dairy. Yeah, I think it's hard to argue with that. A good shout. LS Linko, I believe, is putting in a comment was for Joe Linton. So yeah, keep putting in the chat who you thought was your man in the match and any other things. But we'll wrap up our thoughts on the match and then talk about some stuff as we start to look forward. Again, it's never a dull moment in the league. We've always got another thing on the horizon. So let's bring in Jacob. How we doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for being patient. I know it's a long way, but we saved the best for last.
Yeah, good stuff like that. Yeah, I think as mentioned, I think it's just job done.
Yeah,
It's not going to be one to remember. I don't think it was a special performance, but I think I want to touch on when you asked Connor about the right back situation. I'm probably more concerned about the left back situation because Hall's looks. I've just read that Eddie Howe said he's done his hamstring against USG when he was only on the pitch for 15 minutes. So they say they're hoping it's a short term, not long term. They're going to rescan it in 10 days. So yeah, because we've got a centre half playing left back and we've got Matty Target out on loan. So that's it. Whereas on the other side,
watch Dan Burn at left back.
this is it. So the other side, at least we've got Kraft. I know he's not probably top Premier League right back, but we've got someone. Whereas on the other, we've got no one.
Well, that is breaking, and thank you for bringing that because I had my concerns on that, and so let's talk about that. I mean, would you even maybe consider? Do you think it's better in the interim until Tino comes back to put Trippier on the left and then play Kraft on the right? It's been a while, but we have seen Trips play out on the left.
Yeah, I think this is probably a possibility if, Dan Burn's not getting any younger. What's he, 31, 32 maybe? I think especially after the international break when we have 2 games a week again, we've got Benfica, or Brighton, then Benfica, and then someone else. And Burn is not going to play 90 minutes. Well, for me anyway. So yeah, he might have to revert to Kraft and Trippier because Trippier can play left back. But yeah, it's a little worry. It's a little worry, let's say.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's not good news. Let's keep our fingers and toes crossed on Lewis Hall there because we definitely need him. He's a big part of it. I mean, I think Tino's doesn't seem too bad, knock on wood. But I guess while we're kind of talking about some injuries and things like this, let's also talk about Johan Vissa. Kind of the big news this week was that he experienced a setback. Now, not majorly. We're talking 2 weeks, potentially longer than what was originally told to us. Granted, games are coming thick and fast, so that might be 4 or 5 games, to be fair. But still, 2 weeks in the grander scheme of things isn't much. But I've seen a lot of talk about, and I'm curious on your thoughts. I know it gets complicated sometimes when you're talking about international duty, but I've seen a lot of arguments for should Newcastle say that he shouldn't go to African Cup of Nations because potentially he's going to come back and only be back for a little bit, and then we're going to lose him to go into the African Cup of Nations. And one of his big things that he said why he wanted to come here was Champions League football. I mean, he's going to have to get up to speed. It's not like he's going to be ready right out the gates. He may come here and only get 1 or 2 games of Champions League football anyway. So if you really wanted to come here for Champions League football, like, no disrespect to your country, but we need you.
I don't think we're in a position to tell him if he can't or can't go because it's obviously at the end of the day his decision and the international decision. But I completely forgot about AFCON in January because you hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, you've wasted 45, 50 million on Vissa when you could have got him on a free next year. And I always argued that, well, no, because if we waited till next year, we'd have had a lot more competition for the striker because, on a free, there's going to be a lot more interest. So, yeah, if he's out till November and then probably or potentially the whole of January, and we might be out of the Champions League by the end of January. You don't know.
Exactly.
You don't know. So
that's not that I'm saying that I don't think we'll make it through, but heaven forbid if we don't get through. I mean, listen, we're not even really in. We're only starting the games, and we're already. I'm not going to say we're in an injury crisis, but we are at a tipping point that you add one or two more, and we got problems.
I think we're only maybe like a Tonali injury away, or maybe not centre half because we're quite well equipped now, or even a Woltemade, like just a 1 or 2 week Woltemade injury, and you're looking at it and thinking, like. Whereas 3-4 weeks ago, it was really healthy. We had a really healthy squad, so it just shows you how quickly it can change. And I think it's even worse because we're in all 4 competitions, and obviously we want to be. So yeah, it's not like we're playing once a week and that's it. It's a little bit worrying, especially when we're looking to break into the top 6 essentially. You have to be fortunate with these kind of things as well because it's a shame really.
Yeah. Well, let's real quick bring it back to the game for a bit. Obviously, love to get your thoughts, but one thing I don't think we really talked about a whole bunch was did we get a little bit of a gift from Geordie local Elliot Anderson? Did he help us there? Or
up until that point, I thought he was brilliant. That's the thing. I was watching the game thinking, oh, what a shame. And I'm sure Eddie was thinking the same as well. This is such a shame because he's going to be an unbelievable player. And he already is as well. Be interesting to watch him next week for England as well. I hope he starts as well, and I think he will. I think he's deserved it. I think it's a big statement leaving Jude out as well of the team.
Interesting. I don't follow that as much. So yeah, that is big news for sure.
I mean, I don't think it's anything serious, but so yeah, it would definitely be interesting to see how he plays for them as well. But yeah, I was just watching it thinking, I wish you were still here. I wish, not to be harsh on Willock, but I wish you were in Willock's place, and then that would have been like probably more or less the perfect 6 to go forward with. But yeah, I think he's fell out of love with Willock a little bit, hasn't
he? Yeah. Just going to chat quick. Cheers, Prakash, saying you can't force a player not to play for their country. And listen, I totally get it. It's a tough thing for sure. At the end of the day, generally speaking, if we were in their shoes, that would be kind of arguably the pinnacle of your career. So to try and say that would not be fair. The only thing I would make a little bit of an argument in the case of, or not my argument, one of the arguments I've heard is it's not like he's never played for his national team. He has a handful of caps. I think he probably has a handful of caps even if he doesn't come. I mean, even 2 years from now, he's still probably going to be in AFCON contention for his country. I mean, I know you never know in a footballer's career, but yeah, just to kind of play a little bit of devil's advocate there.
I think it's also worth noting that Vissa probably starts. Is it Congo? I think he plays for Congo.
Yeah, PR Congo.
He'll start for Congo, and is he really going to sacrifice an AFCON tournament, which for someone who he might not be starting every week still, because he might still go for Woltemade in the Champions League? You don't know. So I think
that's the interesting thing. If Woltemade keeps doing what he's doing, I mean, to an extent, instead of it being probably what would have been Vissa as 1A and Woltemade 1B, is it now roles reversed?
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing as well. Like when Vissa is eventually fit in November, I think it is, and Woltemade is still going at the rate he's going. Like, what do you do? Do you drop him? I don't think you can drop him as such. I think it just depends on the minutes load as well and the players. But it will definitely be interesting to see how Eddie handles both of their minutes as well.
Yeah. So obviously we've been talking man of the match, things like that. I mean, I think we've covered probably almost everyone at this point. But who would you put in the ring for your man of the match?
I think I quite liked how Tonali played. I know you mentioned it earlier. I think because he's set the standard so high for himself, even if he plays at 85-90%, I think we're like, oh. But yeah, I think he's.
If Italian cars were more reliable, I'd say he's a Ferrari. But
I was a little bit worried when he went down. Hopefully that's nothing serious as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on I really don't want to be negative, but I thought Lang was really poor. I thought Lang it was nothing like he was on Wednesday as well.
I don't think he. I think he probably was. I think he was like a 6. He didn't do anything amazing. He didn't do anything wrong, but he's kind of. I mean, I've started to hear this comparison, and I think it's a semi-fair one. He's kind of almost like Saint-Maximin. If everything comes together, he will be part of a moment that is an excellent moment. But otherwise, all you're ever going to get is probably a 6 out of 10. Where Murphy gives you more versatility.
Yeah, I think the style that Forest went to a back 5, I don't think that helped at all. I think, in hindsight, maybe I think games like today where they might defend a little deeper and sit back, I think Murphy's probably a little bit more appropriate because I think actually on the ball, I think Murphy's maybe edges it. But if you're playing in the Champions League and you're playing on the counter attack, I think obviously Langer's definitely more suitable. So, but I think it was a little bit of a shock that they went to a back 5. But when they come into a back 4 with 10 minutes left, I think we looked a little bit vulnerable. I know it was 2-0 later on, but I want to touch upon the clean sheets as well that we've got.
You're reading my mind. I was just thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, we've have another clean sheet. We need to talk about this.
I think the style that we play as well is a little bit surprising because we're. If our style doesn't work, we are then really opening their number 10 position in the middle because I know Tonali plays as a 6, but we all press as a team, and if that doesn't work, there's a massive gap behind. So, but I just wanted to touch upon the clean sheets as well.
Because I think for a bit there, Forest were threatening us. Our commentators were talking about it on our feed about how they were trying to break our press by getting it out to that first man and then just basically going over us. Now, normally, when you got Dan Burn in center back, he's kind of nullified that method of getting out. But having him out in the fullback position, you don't really get him going in for those. And even though Botman and Chow are not short people, I just don't think that's quite their strong suits.
It's the presence that Burn has, isn't it? I think I know it's only another 2 or 3 inches taller than Chow and Botman, but it does make a difference especially when you're coming up against players like Chris Wood, who got a hat-trick last time he played against us. But I think it does make a difference in the middle as well. I think the only benefit from probably playing Dan Burn at left back is probably set pieces, where obviously your position on the pitch where you start out doesn't really matter too much. So it's I think we're definitely at a slight detriment with Hall and Tino both injured, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes going forward.
Yeah, I mean, positive news on the injury front. I mean, it was disappointed. There was some teasers that maybe we'd see Ramsey on the bench today. We didn't see Ramsey on the bench, unfortunately, but hopefully he's going to be back. We were led to believe that he's a little ahead of schedule. And I think Miley's been putting in some decent shifts, and gives us some good rotational ability as we start to prep. But I think this time of rest, we can go in, breathing easy, and hopefully just give our players some moments to rest. Fingers crossed, the Hall thing, fingers crossed the scan comes back. These 10 days mean nothing. If the scan comes back and it's good, then we're right back where we thought we were. We don't lose 10 days while we're waiting that result, No. So let's fingers crossed there.
I think with the Ramsey not being included as well, I don't think that's the end of the world because Eddie probably looked at us and we've got 3 fit midfielders. We've got Miley and Willock on the bench. We don't really need to risk bringing Jacob back. With 2 weeks ahead as well with no game, it's probably not necessary.
I agree.
So I think in hindsight, probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And with hindsight, again, we can say, although I was ready for the critiques if the game did not go right, I think Eddie, again, we got to tip our hat. And I think if anything, this shows that as much as we love our team, and I'm not calling any one of us not knowledgeable on the squad, but we don't live it and breathe it like Eddie does. Eddie generally does know better than us. And even though me seeing Dan Burn, again, I want to for those that don't know, I know I'm newish to the channel, but I am arguably the head of the Dan Burn fan club. I have a signed jersey from him. I love that man to death. He is, I think, living out all of our dreams. I mean, I'm not from Newcastle, but like that dream of playing for your childhood team is universal. Whatever sport you love, wherever you're born, whether it's cricket or American football or ice hockey, whatever. Playing, if I got to play a game for the Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm a big hockey fan too. I would be in heaven. But anyways, You get my point. We love him, but I just don't like him out on left back. There were a couple moments where he made me nervous, and we talked about that with Connor. But yeah,
I think it's the way nothing against him because it's just how he is, but it's the way he receives the ball. It's from an opposition point of view. I think it's very predictable. He's going to receive it on that spin and then go onto his left foot and then pass to Gordon. Gordon's going to cut in, and it's very. I think patterns like that are a little bit predictable. Whereas if you have Burnett, he either just as a back five in like a left centre half, it's completely different to like a fullback position. So I think having an actual left back, i.e. Hall, to receive the ball, he can probably do a little bit more with it, especially on his weaker foot as well. I think it's probably a lot more beneficial. So, but yeah, like you say, I love Burn. I think he's top 10 centre halves in the league. I genuinely believe that. I think when he's in form and he's playing regularly, I think just because he's not called Bernino, it doesn't really get the recognition he deserves. But yeah, I really like him.
Yeah, well, I'm going to real quickly pull up before we wrap up. Let's look at the league table. Obviously, we've got one game still active. But as of right now, this is where the table sits. We currently sit now in 11th. Now, if Brentford was to come back and win that would affect our position. But right now, looking like we will end the weekend going into 11th. And the reason why I bring this up is I wanted to ask you, Jacob, now that we're here, we're at the second international break. Are we behind where we should be at this point? Are we where we think we should be? Obviously, I think generally speaking, there's been some understandable negative moments so far this season. And probably feelings of we're not at all, going into this game, we were only 1 point above Forest, and you can see Forest are now in 17th. Yeah. So the league position did not look great, albeit I think there was context to that. So how are you feeling about it starting October and where we're at in the table?
I'm okay. We've had 3 defeats against Liverpool, Barcelona, and Arsenal. It's not the end of the world. Albeit we've lacked a little bit of creativity up front, but I think that's probably with 2/3 of the attack have literally just joined. So I think you have to give it time to bed in. But yeah, I'm fairly optimistic. I don't really look at the table until probably at least halfway through the season when you played.
Yeah, I still would agree with you. It's quite early.
I think it's still very early, but yeah, I'm optimistic. I'm usually the biggest pessimist, to be honest. So I am quite optimistic. But yeah, I think I'm more excited for the Champions League, to be honest. I think we can go far in that.
I just noticed that Palace ended up losing, so no more undefeated teams. No. Just as I'm looking at the table, but the reason why I noticed that is, again, just depending on how things go in our next fixture versus Brighton, we could all of a sudden potentially be as high as 6th. So, like you said, at this point in the season, it's kind of hard to judge, get too far ahead of ourselves, and I think. What I'm feeling is kind of the converse of last season. So remember last season, if let's rewind our brains. We were getting some of the results, albeit our performances probably did not merit the results. And then we went through that stretch of the performances finally caught up with us. The big one being that Brentford away day, when even Lee was saying on the channel here, maybe Eddie has been found out and things like that. And then we went on that 10-game winning run. But where I'm going with this is I think it's almost been the opposite. Most of our games, at least it's never been – I don't think there's been a single game, maybe Barcelona, where we deserved to lose.
Yeah, I'd agree.
We didn't deserve to lose to Villa. I mean, if anything, we deserve to get more points. We didn't deserve to probably beat Leeds, but we also didn't deserve to lose, and we didn't. I mean, you could argue maybe we're a little fortunate to have beaten Wolves. Wasn't a great performance. But my point being is we definitely didn't deserve to lose to Liverpool. We didn't deserve to lose to Arsenal. Really, Barcelona is probably the most where the performance probably matched what we deserved.
No, sorry.
I was just going to say in some kind of I think we're getting there. The performances have been there. The results have not.
Yeah. I think everything, it sounds daft, but everything other than the creativity and the putting our chances away, I think we've been really good, especially at the back. I think maybe against Arsenal, I think they probably edged it for me personally.
Okay.
I think it's just the manner of the defeat which felt like...
Fair enough. And I did miss large chunks of that game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So maybe some of that was just me missing it and not seeing it.
I think it's the Liverpool game, really, that still really...
That one, yeah. I mean, that... there was almost a hole in my wall courtesy of Rio.
I was talking to my friend about this. I think I'd rather lose 6-0 than lose like that. Like, I'd rather... It's just the most frustrating thing ever, especially when it's, like, undeserved as well. So, I think we have been a little bit unlucky, but like you said, against Wolves, maybe a little bit fortunate. So, I think you could argue it swings and roundabouts, really.
Yeah. And one thing on the creativity that I think is an important thing, and we've been highlighting Woltemade, is he's got 4 goals already, all comps. That's half of what Isak had in his first season. Exactly. So I'm not saying that he's better than Isak or anything like that, but I think we would all agree creatively we're not there, but we are still starting to put the ball in the net, even though we're not fully clicking. So when we finally click, hopefully that'll mean good things.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, it's the chemistry between players. Woltemade and Alanga's been here 2 months, and you have to take this into consideration. We are still adapting. So yeah, I think it is onwards and upwards from here. But I would argue that for games like today, I think Murphy is probably more suitable when they sit a little bit deeper. But I definitely think it's good that we've got good rotation in the area of the pitch, because it's not really something that we've had too much.
Just go into chats real quick, and then we will wind us down. Thank you, John, for doing my job for me. Drop the channel a like, hit that subscribe. We do put a lot of work into it, and we appreciate it. We also thank our guests that take their time and help us, Jacob, Connor, Nigel, all of them. Thank you so much for all of that. But I will go to you. Any final thoughts as we go into this break? What's probably I'll give you a little bit more pointed. What's the most important thing we need to do to take that next step against Brighton? What do we need to see in that game?
I think we need to be more clinical. I think we've got a terrible record against Brighton. Whenever we go to the South Coast, whether it's Bournemouth or Brighton, we don't really seem to do very well. So I think it's just turning those results into more positive ones. And I think you almost need to act like you're at home in those games, play with the same intensity. I think we've been guilty of not doing that in the past, and giving probably a little bit too much respect to the opposition. So yeah, the international breaks come at a rubbish time, let's say, but it's nothing we can do anything about it. So yeah, I think we just need to be a lot more clinical.
Well, thank you so much for your time. One last time, again, please hit those thumbs up, subscribe, notification bell. We'll have more content coming from Lee as the day progresses with The Last Word, match reaction, all kinds of good stuff. Thank you again to our guests for calling in. It's greatly appreciated. And also, thank you so much to our sponsor, Ballybet, for sponsoring this and the next couple videos. Again, don't forget, if you bet £10, you get £20 in free bets. So if you want to punt this season, make sure you're punting with Ballybet. They've got live odds, easy bet builder, a clean interface, all kinds of good stuff. Link below in the notes. 18 plus, T's and C's apply. Be gamble aware. Thank you guys, and we will catch you next time.
Cheers.
Way to laugh.